Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football on the first day of August. The USC commitment sweatshirt comes back on, and to many of the USC fans who've been rocking with the boys in the summer months, y'all know how I feel about this one. Four-star offensive lineman Breck Kolojay committing to USC. This kid freaking rocks. I would go out and say this. He's the cleanest prospect on the offensive line that you see in the 2026 cycle. And what I mean by that is I look at Breck Kolojay and say, not sure if he's going to be a top 10 NFL draft pick. But when you look at this kid coming from IMG Academy, he's about as technically sound and physically developed as any offensive lineman that you see in the 2026 cycle. There are two things that jump out. Number one, you feel like this kid's going to hit. At a position where it's often difficult to project if offensive linemen are going to translate to the next level, especially when you're playing in the Big Ten. You look at Breck Kolojay and say this kid was born to play Big Ten football. Number two, though, he's going to be ready early. And that's something we've talked about with USC, throughout the 2026 cycle. Look, USC's got their NIL right, and we've talked about that. But when they decide to push their chips in and go battle with the top programs in the country and get their guys, they want guys that are going to be able to play early. I look at Breck Kolojay and say, this kid's probably going to be in the two deep as a freshman, probably going to start for you year two. One of those guys that you look at and say, multi-year contributor for USC up front on the offensive line. And that's the reason I think USC pushed their chips in the way they did with Breck Kolojay. It's not like USC is hurting for offensive linemen in the 2026 cycle. I believe it's the seventh offensive line commitment for USC. You feel good anytime you get a chance to add a football player like Breck Kolojay. You do it every single day of the week. The last thing I'll say, bet on IMG Academy offensive linemen. Go look at the track record for guys who played at IMG and then go to the college level. They normally go in pretty dang high in the NFL draft. Breck Kolojay, Kenny Pepe, guys that I want to bet on. Then the other storyline is Breck Kolojay and Kenny Pepe been playing next to each other on the left side of the offensive line for IMG Academy the last 2 years. So you inherently kind of get a little chemistry and continuity with your two top offensive line commitments in the 2026 cycle. This is Kenny Pepe, Breck Kolojay is probably going to be the left side of USC's offensive line for at least 2 years over the next couple. That fires me up as well. We're going to get into the film of Breck Kolojay because I think it is so clean. I think it's so fun to watch. Before we do it, as always, the USC fans appreciate you guys. And it ain't been a program that's been more fun to talk about than USC on the recruiting trail. And the amount of support y'all have shown the boys has been amazing. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into this one. Now, when you turn on Breck Kolojay, the first thing you see is looks like a college football offensive lineman, just physically. 6'5", 320 pounds. Go take a look at his social media feed. He is an animal in the weight room. That translates to Friday nights on the high school football field. This kid's extremely powerful. Not only does he have a really good frame and he's really powerful, technically extremely clean. You look at the pad level, it's elite. The hand placement, it's elite. His ability to climb to the second level, whether it's pulling play side, whether it's double teams working up the backers, very, very smooth. So the best way to put it is he combines, look, I really like the athletic profile. And I'll say this, that there could be some right tackle in there, because I look at the frame and say, all right, he's almost 6'6", 320 pounds. I think he's got good feet, plays guard at IMG. Wouldn't be surprised if he could play right tackle, but at the very least, going to be a very good guard. He has the athletic profile that you're looking for, and he matches it up with a very strong understanding of what it looks like to play at a high level on the offensive line. When you check both those boxes, athletic profile and football player, that's when you know you're getting a good one. And again, once we say this all the time with the IMG Academy kids, they kind of know what it's like. And there ain't no way around it. IMG is essentially a college football program down there in Florida. So he's coming to USC knowing what fall camp feels like. He's knowing what legitimate weight room sessions look like too. That acclimation to USC ain't going to be all that different. Now, you turn on the film, and it's really fun to watch. And it's fun to watch because, one, he's playing next to Kenny Pepe. But number two, I mean, I think it's so clean. Look at good release off the line of scrimmage. Always has a strong stance. Pad level is good. We're going to climb to the second level, get hands on second level defenders, put them in the dirt. That is what it should look like. And it looks like that every single time with Breck Kolojay. The consistency is out of this world for this kid. Once again, down block, devastatingly powerful, quickly climbing to the second level, getting a hand on the off-ball backer, springing our running back. I mean, he's powerful off the line of scrimmage when it comes to the down blocks, and then he's a really good athlete when he's climbing to the second level. Continue to look through it. I mean, this is what it should look like. When you talk about coming out of your stance with active feet, hand placement perfectly in the chest of the defensive lineman. We're playing with low pads and we're winning. And he's nasty, man. I probably should have, that's probably something I should have noted right off the top. This dude is a nasty, nasty dude on the offensive line. And you talk about that new identity and that new culture that USC is clearly trying to inject into this program. That is, we are going to dominate the line of scrimmage. Breck Kolojay is a guy that you want establishing that identity for USC because this dude is a nasty, nasty dude. Getting out of his stance, pulling plays out there. You're going to do this a lot in the Lincoln Riley run game. Does it at a high level. Poor number 19. I mean, really didn't stand a chance here. He's a good athlete pulling play side. He's a good athlete climbing to the second level. He's powerful with his down blocks, moving bodies off the line of scrimmage. I mean, Breck Kolojay, Kenny Pepe, that is what you want your left side of your offensive line looking like. And I don't think it's all that crazy to say, well, we're going to see that duo on the left side of the offensive line sooner rather than later for USC. Like, both of these guys are going to play early, and they're going to play a lot for USC. Kenny Pepe might need a year, and maybe that's a little bit dependent on whether Elijah Page leaves for the NFL draft. I think there's a good chance Breck Kolojay can crack the maybe starting rotation year one at USC. That's how physically ready I think he is. But that's also when I look at him and say he's ready to do it technically as a football player too. Line of scrimmage. I mean, that is 7 commitments on the offensive lineman for USC, on the offensive line for USC, multiple blue chip guys. Then you look on the defensive line and say you got 4 guys on the inside. You got 5 guys coming off the edge, couple of guys that can do some different things. This is it's not only a real, and here's what I would stress about USC's class in 2026. Why does it feel a little bit different? It's a really complete class. And go back to, I believe, 2023, where USC signed a very, very good class that was ranked high, and it had Malachi Nelson, it had Zachariah Branch, Deuce Robinson, Mekhi Lemon. The problem with that class was it wasn't all that complete. It was really heavy with offensive skill. You know, you had a guy like Zach Branch, Quentin Joyner, Deuce. It was pretty much all offensive skill, no line of scrimmage guys. And that was kind of indicative of the problems that you saw with USC from a roster building, talent acquisition standpoint. Look at this class. You're over 30 guys. There's not a position group that I look at and say, whoa, that's a problem. And so now the conversation is like, what's next for USC? I think they got a couple of more spots that they could use in the 2026 cycle. And look, you're in a spot where you don't have to force it. You know, if you just sign the class that we see on paper right now, you're feeling dang good about the 2026 cycle. You can either lean into some senior year evaluations and say, hey, any guys, especially on the West Coast, that flew under the radar sophomore, junior year, that burst onto the scene as seniors, there's always a couple. Can USC go out and find some of those guys, maybe at linebacker, maybe at safety? You can also say, hey, we don't need to be desperate, but we can sign this class and then maybe look to supplement in the transfer portal. USC sits in a really good spot. And the last thing I'll say is you feel good about these guys staying locked in and signing their papers to USC. You know, with the no visit policy that Chad Bowden has implemented, when guys commit to USC, you feel really good that they ain't backing out of their commitment. You have a really clean picture of what this class looks like. What does USC decide to do next? That's something we're going to find out over the next couple of weeks. And I think it has a lot to do with the success that USC could have in 2025 as well. You start translating this momentum that USC has built as a program onto the football field, maybe it allows you to get that spatula out and land a couple bigger flips. We'll see how it plays out. If you're a USC fan, that this to me is the cherry on top. But we've said this a couple of times, and USC just doesn't slow down. We'll see how it plays out. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. We got a lot of storylines to talk about in fall camp as well, which we will get to. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.